Kellie Ma, you mentioned Bowie Bunny. Bowie Bunny is the alter ego of a wonderful mountains artist. And I say artist in the broadest possible sense because Kellie, who is the real life Bowie Bunny, is an artist and is a degree qualified artist, but does all manner of things, which we will dive into this evening. But it's interesting. I've realised all my guests on Practice and Process, it's a bit of a pattern emerging. I never seem to interview people who do only one thing. Maybe that's because I've got my fingers in 1,000 different pies, but I love to speak to people who do all manner of different creative pursuits. And Kellie, I think it's fair to say you're definitely somebody like that, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I've always been creative, and when I started studying like fine art, I couldn't settle on one thing. And living in the Blue Mountains, you get inspired in a million different ways. And you might want to photograph something, but then you might want to sculpt it, and then you might want to draw it, and then you might want to turn it into a T-shirt. Like
absolutely, and you can do all of those things. That's the wonderful thing about, well, certainly living where we do. I think we're encouraged up here to not define ourselves and to pursue all those different interests.
Absolutely.
But let's just touch on the various different things that you do. So, as you mentioned, you are a fine artist, a qualified fine artist. Although, do you need qualifications to be
I have
an
a
incredible
piece
artist?
of paper that says I am. So, yeah.
Well, that's great.
No, I think anyone can be an artist. Yeah. Absolutely anyone. I left school not knowing what to do, however. So, I did a fine arts degree, and it covered a myriad of things, from printmaking to photography to life drawing to sculpture, and I never settled on one. I fell in love with all of them.
Yeah, amazing. So people in the mountains, if they're familiar with your work, may be familiar with your comic books and the associated comic book style art that you do. So your comic series is called Dark Side of the Blue.
Yes.
And it focuses on the different megafauna, I suppose, the kind of cryptozoology, mythical creatures of the mountains.
Yes.
As well as some of the myths and legends, the hauntings, the Lady in Black up at Mount Victoria, and we'll talk more about her shortly. The ghost at Woodford Academy. You've called her the Lady in White, I think, haven't you?
She is, and she's actually the mother of the woman in black at Mount Victoria.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting. Mary Hopkins is her name, and I can tell you all about her. But I digress. So you've refined this really wonderful comic book style. And in addition to making the comic books themselves, you've done prints, you've done postcards, greeting cards, lots of things in that amazing, really vibrant, dynamic comic book style. What is it that attracts you to that particular style of art?
Oh gosh. Okay, so as well as fine arts, I studied graphic design, and I've always been attracted to font. I love fonts. I was designing fonts, and I got into a heated conversation with one of my art teachers who said, Comic Sans ain't no good. And I was like, well, there's a time and a place. I'm not a fan of Comic Sans on, say, a corporate email. However, comic books, I've always loved comic books, and it's that combining the two, font and picture together. Like, you can have graphic novels, you can have comic books. And with the Dark Side of the Blue series, it actually came about because of a conversation with my boss and friend Rose at the Cultural Centre. We both loved the spooky, the darker side of the blue.
Yeah.
And I was doing a ghost tour that weekend with Paranormal Pete, who does the
at Woodford Academy. I've done that one. It's so good.
It is so good. He is incredible, and I would say, like, he has inspired so many stories in the comic series just with his local knowledge and experience. Like, I mean, he ventures out into the bush in the dead of the night most nights of the week, and it's amazing. So Rose and I were having a chat.
Because we should mention, sorry to cut across you there, but we should mention that Kellie's day job is doing front of house at the Cultural Centre.
It is,
people who are regular visitors there may well have seen you in the retail space or flitting about the gallery.
Yeah, having a chat with basically anyone who walks through the door. But Rose said to me that she would love something with a yowie on it or something with the panther on it. And like there are
the
a couple
panther.
of things.
How could I have forgotten the panther?
Oh gosh, yeah. Out of all of my range of wares, the panther, the drop bear, and the yowie are the biggest sellers. But yeah, Rose is who inspired me to actually. I was like, well, I think with my skills, I can make you a yowie T-shirt, or I can make you a drop bear T-shirt. And she was like, yes, please.
Absolutely.
And then I started off in comic book style because the monsters, myths, and legends of our mountains, they're kind of superheroes and supervillains sometimes as well too.
That's so true, and they really lend themselves to that style.
Superpowers.
Yeah. But what I find really interesting is I think there's a perception among people that comic book style art, although excellent, isn't, quote unquote, real art.
Exactly.
But I feel like your work and your decision to sort of specialize in that style has really elevated it. I mean, there's no question that you're sort of pushing the boundaries, I think. Was that a conscious decision for you to try and take it into the realms of, again, quote unquote, art?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, I had, as I said, my background in fine art, and I love portraiture. So I think over the last 20, 25 years, I have always drawn people or photographed people. I love faces. So when it came to comic books, there's an element of realism, but I think it's because I can't just draw a smiley face.
No.
It's got to have dimples, it's got to have eyebrows. And so the people who actually appear in my comic books are actually people.
Yes, like your husband makes many appearances, doesn't he?
Yes, he is. He does go crazy at the end, guys, but he's been a model for a lot of the comic book things, and needless to say, he's a very charismatic person, so he's a very, very fun person to draw.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've wrote my friends into them. I've wrote, oh gosh, there was one of my mates, Pete, who was doing renovations on our house, and I was like, stand there, let me draw you. But yeah, I said about the comic books much in a way as I said about any artwork. With the comic books, I started off with a storyline, then I storyboarded it. Then I took photographs of the characters, my human characters, in situ.
Wow.
And then I sketched and created each cell from those photographs.
Oh my goodness. I had no idea that comic book art was so involved.
It is, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it sure is.
Now you two, you're like partners in crime over there. How did you two meet?
Well, it was really interesting, actually. In fact, Kellie just reminded me. I came across her work, and I'd completely forgotten where that was. But as Kellie's just reminded me, it was at Odd Mountain, that fabulous shop full of all things kind of creepy and esoteric.
It's my second home.
Oh, it's the best. It's up here in Katoomba, and if you haven't been, you must go because it's brilliant. So they were one of the early stockists of Kellie's work, and I saw it in there, and one of her prints in particular caught my eye, which was the print of the Lady in Black, aka the Ghost of Mount Victoria Pass, aka Caroline Collins, who I had always been fascinated with, to the extent that I'm now doing a PhD on Caroline and her life. So I reached out to Kellie and said, I'm doing this PhD. Obviously, we share an interest in this particular topic, and there's no photographs of Caroline, obviously, because she was killed in 1842. So I asked Kellie if she would consider allowing me to commission a picture of Caroline in some description based on, the few sort of physical descriptions of her that exist. So we've just been sort of in touch since then, really, haven't we?
Exactly, yeah. And then our love of dogs brought us together as well. And
you
obviously,
had the most beautiful dog, and he passed away.
He's stunning. But the gorgeous Alison Rose that you interviewed, not that long ago, she made the most beautiful portrait of him that just brings me so much joy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. So we did indeed connect over the story of Caroline but not just her, all the sort of creepy things that you do.
Yeah.
And what is it that kind of draws you to those kinds of stories?
Oh gosh, let me think. To surmise quickly, the X-Files. I was a huge X-Files nerd back in early 90s, all the way through to the current whatever it is that they're doing. I'm obsessed with the things that we don't quite know about. I love
the unexplained.
Yeah, I love the unexplained. I love realizing we don't know everything. And I listen to so many podcasts about people who've had encounters with different things, whether it be cryptids like Bigfoot and Megalania and that sort of stuff, to people who they live in haunted houses and those sorts of things. I've always loved that. And so I've gone on basically every single one of Paranormal Pete's ghost tours around the Blue Mountains, and I don't know what it is. I've always been drawn to that sort of stuff, and yes, I am very bright and bubbly, but there's also a dark side to Kel.
I can relate to that. I was once at a party and we were talking about true crime, and I said, not thinking, oh, I love murder. And I had to quickly correct myself and say, oh, what I mean is I'm fascinated by stories of true crime, but that just came out completely wrongly.
It's all good. People look at me strange when I go, I love Bigfoot.
Yeah, you and my husband would get on well. He's obsessed with yowies. But I think the mountains in particular, there's something about the mountains, isn't there, that makes it such fertile territory for creation in general, but creation with a bit of a dark twist.
Absolutely. As soon as the sun goes down, this place is creepy.
Yes.
I love it. We're surrounded by such dense wilderness, untouched wilderness. Anything can be out there.
That's right. And the darkness here is like no other.
It is.
It's a special kind of night that we have in the mountains, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I can walk the streets quite comfortably throughout the day, and then I've been out on different fire grounds at night, and might quieten down. We start telling a few ghost stories. I'm like, please hold my hand.
Yes.
But I love getting scared.
Yes, there's something kind of deliciously thrilling about it, isn't there? You mentioned fire grounds there, and I should point out that you are a very active RFS volunteer, and that you took an incredible photograph during the bushfires of last summer, because one of Kellie's degrees is in photography, or one of your specialist areas is in photography. So it's not just the comic books. Photography is also another very accomplished string to your bow.
And it's a passion.
Yeah, and you took this stunning image of one of your RFS colleagues, Emily.
Yes. Tell
us about that photo and the way it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Well, I'm with Blaxland RFS, and it's an incredible brigade, as are all the brigades in the Blue Mountains. And Emily took me under her wing when I joined, about 5-6 years ago. Emily is incredible. She's our deputy captain, she's our president, she's been our maintenance officer. She's been with the RFS since she was a little tyke as well too. And she is just effervescent. She also is hearing impaired. She's a mother who works full time.
Wow.
And then you get her out on the fire ground and she's like, bam, 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 bam.
This is how it's going to go.
This is how it's going to go. And she gets this look on her face where she's got 1,000 communications coming in one ear. She's got us going, hey, look, everything's on fire. What do we do? But
a reasonable question.
She has this fantastic resolve, as do a lot of all firefighters. But so before I was employed at the cultural center, they were putting out the call for the portraits exhibition, and I wanted to get a photograph of a female firefighter. And I wanted Emily. And
because as you mentioned, it's all about faces for you, right?
It is.
And she's got the face of someone that is beautifully photographed, obviously.
She is a force to be reckoned with. She can make you laugh so much. And she can also scare you half to death. Bam, bam, bam. But I adore her. I trust her with my life. I always have done. And she just has this face that, I'm obsessed with.
You knew you had to capture it.
It did. So, got around my place and taken a few photos, and I said to her, you're smiling, we're laughing. I got to get this. So I asked her to tell me about different stories on the fireground where it's gotten hectic. And without a word of a lie, split second, that face came and she just started talking. I got the shot within 8 seconds.
Wow. So you just slipped into another headspace.
She did.
Yeah.
She's Emily, she's work Emily, she's RFS Emily, she's mom Emily, and yeah, she's fantastic. So as I said, it was before I was employed at the Cultural Centre. I submitted it, they accepted it, and I was hung in the Cultural Centre.
Because the photograph, although it was Emily in your backyard, looks like she's in the middle of a fire.
Yeah.
So you've enhanced it and done things to it. I don't know what the technical term is.
Digital painting.
Digital painting. Okay.
So that's sort of where my fine arts and my graphic design crossover once again. And at the opening of the Blue Mountains portraits, Trish Doyle made mention of it in her speech. She went, "That just raises the hair up on the back of my neck," and I thought, all right, we've got something here, and I entered it into the Resilient Australia Awards.
Yeah.
Emily took out state, so she won New South Wales Award. We went national. She got second prize.
Wow.
And then from there, the Australian Mint contacted me, and they wanted a piece to put on the packaging of the commemorative coin for the 2019-2020 fires, and they thought Emily was perfect. So Emily went national.
Yeah. It's incredible. And if people haven't seen this image, because it's hard to describe really the impact of the photograph, so where can people go and see it?
Currently she's hung in the Blaxland RFS Brigade shed.
Okay. Can people just pop down there and have a look?
Yeah, we're open over Wednesday night doing maintenance and whatnot. And then, if you look up the Australian Mint website, it's on there. You can purchase the coin. The Blue Mountains Gazette also did a feature. So if you just Google Kellie Ma Blue Mountains Gazette, it'll pop up numerous times actually. and Trish Doyle's got a copy of it in her office in Springwood as well too.
And we are back. This is Practice and Process. I'm Laura Greaves, and I'm chatting with Kellie Ma this evening, who is an artist of all descriptions, from comic books to photography and everything in between. And now, or soon, we can add board game creator to that long list. Tell us about the board game you've got in development.
Okay, well, basically, my husband's a nerd. And
which is why you love him, right?
Absolutely, because I'm a nerd. But he came up with a board game concept about 2 years ago. And it was one of those things that fell on the back burner. Like, we were doing market stalls. I was doing portraits.
Plus there was that tiny pandemic that happened.
Right. Yeah. And bushfires and floods.
Yeah.
But life got in the way. And at the start of this year, we were having a conversation with another dear friend of mine, and she's an avid board game player. And she was like, you have to do this board game. I've got, what if you did this? What if you did that? And as
I love those conversations.
Oh, I know.
So many great ideas come out of those.
I just looked over and I saw Carl's eyes just start twinkling. And it was about an hour drive back home. And I went to bed and I woke up the next morning, went to work, came back. Carl's got the whole concept laid out on the coffee table. Right, this is what's happening. Bam, 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 bam,
He's an action man.
Oh, gorgeous. And my lounge room has been transformed into a Dark Side of the Blue prototype workshop. Every flat surface is covered in some game piece that we've handmade out of clay, because we're just we're trialing it at the moment. We're just using friends and family as guinea pigs, and then we'll look into getting it printed either by self-publishing or maybe looking at a couple of local grants to get, say, 100 printed, see how it goes with us locals up here. I know Meredith at Odd Mountain will probably lap that up.
Absolutely.
But it's one of those things that it's been really fun collaborating with Carl. Like having that joint venture. And
is this the first time you've worked on a project together?
Oh, Carl helps me out with a million projects, whether it be modeling, ideas, inspiration, any of that sort of stuff. However, I think this is our first absolute 50-50 project together. He's a writer and he's working on a series of Penny Dreadful style-esque books based on inspired by the Dark Side of the Blue comic books.
I
My
need
comic
to read those. They sound amazing.
Well, my comic books are very family friendly. I wanted it to be accessible to, well, everyone. I mean, you know, kids love yowies and drop bears and panthers, and so do us big kids.
That's right.
But deep down, I always wanted my monsters to maybe kill off one of my characters, but
With a little bit of
yeah,
gore in there, perhaps.
just a
They
tad.
are monsters after all.
Yeah. However, with my brand, I do want to keep it family friendly. So Carl's a writer, and he just went, you know what? I can do it inspired by the Dark Side of the Blue. And I tell you what, the draft of the Panther Penny Dreadful, I couldn't sleep.
Oh, it's quite terrifying, is it?
Yeah, my comics are like Scooby Doo, and his are like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like,
Excellent. So
Yeah.
very much not child friendly, very much for the
No.
grown ups among us.
very much so. And as I said, they'll be penny dreadful, so they're like, you know, 8 to 10 pages long, something
Yeah.
quick to read, something silly. I'll illustrate the front cover. But
Amazing. And do you have any timeline in mind yet for these, or for the board game, or is they all still on the what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say the artist's
On the workshop
wheel,
floor?
but that's not right.
oh, look, Carl and I have got about 50 billion things on the burner at the moment. However, the board game is one that we do want to get out. I always try and launch around Halloween because, I mean, that's my season.
That's right.
You know,
Made for you.
exactly. So, yeah, we've got a prototype. It's all designed. We're just going to look about different printing options and then, yeah, hopefully get it on the
Amazing.
market later this year. And Carl's books at around about the same time as well. So,
Fantastic.
in between, a million other things.
Of course, isn't that always the way? Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming in this evening and talking to us about your many and varied artistic pursuits. So fascinating. One more thing I did want to quickly mention, we were discussing off air, but I think it's worth mentioning, is that Kelly just told us that with regards to the coin that you designed, the packaging, is that fair to
it's the
say?
packaging of the coin.
Yeah, the Royal Australian Mint were originally aiming to mint 125,000 of those.
Yes.
But they recently told you they've surpassed 1 million sales of those.
It's the highest demand coin that they've ever launched.
That is absolutely incredible. And your photograph is on the front.
all
of
over
those.
Australia.
That's just wonderful.
It's freaking me out.
And yes, well, Emily's immortalised,
Yeah, she
which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Laura.
And where can people find you? Website, Facebook page?
Oh, yeah. Like, my website's basically dead. So, yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Bowie Bunny, Kellie Ma.
Okay.
BOWIE, that is.
Yes.
Bowie Bunny.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Kelly.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.